Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our MEF webinar on the role of AI in traffic compliance. Today, we're joined by Christopher Henseler of Mesh Ads and Jamil Gaith of Mobibox, and we're going to have a conversation about how AI is helping us improve our marketing, but the challenges that it also inevitably brings along. First things first, we're going to go to some introductions, but I have to say, our MEF admin that's behind the scenes and doing the production, Mina, it's her birthday. So happy birthday, Mina, on behalf of me and on behalf of all the members. And thank you for taking the time on your birthday to be running the show for us. Cool. So if we can go over to our speakers, Chris, Jamil, if you could do a kind introduction. Let's go first with you, Chris.
Thanks, Anzelle. So my name is Christopher Henseler. I'm representing Mesh Ads here today as an online marketing agency, primarily focused on Google Ads. And we are fully specialized on the DCB or MVAS industry, on providing dedicated services in terms of providing clean media buying traffic for all our client services. And yeah, I've been in this business for 15 years. And in different roles, also dealing with the connectivity side of the DCB a lot. And I've always been like a hybrid between the technical project management and the marketing side. So always trying to bridge the gaps between the teams. And now we're fully focusing on the marketing part at Mesh Ads and trying to provide best-in-class service for all our partners in the DCB industry.
Thanks, Chris. Jamil?
I'm Jamil Gaith. I represent here Mobibox. Mobibox is AI monetization solution. Mobibox plays the role of connector between the advertising and the monetization of DCB. Mobibox provides services to content providers, to aggregators, telecom operators, and to media buyers as well. I've been in this industry since 14 years. I have technical background, software engineer, and together with my colleagues, we're able to adapt to the changes happening in this market, and we are committed to provide excellent service to our clients.
I like that you said that right off the bat. Cool, thanks. So I actually forgot grossly to introduce myself because I would, in the past, someone would ask me to introduce myself. Now I have to remember to do it. I'm the program director for the DCB content and advertising community at the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. I assume everyone's familiar with what MEF is. The DCB content and advertising community is our arm dedicated to a focus on direct carrier billing as a payment method and the various use cases thereof, one of which is digital content, but we know it's also good for many other things. And then we focus on the content itself, so the products that are being built and the advertising thereof. Today's discussion, obviously, with a focus on the advertising. Now, we've heard during the introductions, Chris having been in the business for 15 years, Jamil for 16 longer, myself also going on 13. And I think a lot has changed, especially in the past 3-4 years. And obviously, AI plays a big role in that. I think there's no industry or no sector that hasn't been touched by it, and ours as well. I have to admit myself, I was a bit of a late adopter, being a classical person and not so very technical. But one of my friends had a birthday and I wanted a picture of a birthday cake with fish and chips on it for them because it's their favorite food. And I knew that doesn't exist, but AI made it and it was hilarious. Anyway, so looking at how it's impacted and how it's affected us, let's start with the sort of before and after picture from a marketing point of view. So, Chris, when we're setting up our campaigns, when we're planning our marketing, and when we're actually executing the setup of the creation of accounts for marketing and the setup of our campaigns, how has the onset of AI changed that? So how did your typical process in doing that look before? and how does it look today? Paint that before and after picture for us, if you will.
Okay, let me try. And so I will start way back because my start in this industry was as a media buyer back in 2010. And we were working primarily with media buying platforms. They don't exist anymore. It was AdMob, which was like before Google Ads. Google acquired it at some point. And we had to create dozens of different ad formats for each campaign. Also back in the days, iPhones just arrived, and we were still dealing with more than 50% of small Nokias and whatever phones. So our designers were occupied for one campaign to deliver 50 plus banners only for one campaign, because they had to adapt to 30 pixels times 50 pixels for the oldest Nokia phone, or then for the newer devices to create some bigger sizes. And then
and did you have to set up a specific campaign to target each of those device sets, or did we at least already have the technology for that bit?
Yeah, if you have time for that, and that's one of the things, that yes, we were doing it, and I mean, I don't think any company back in the days did that kind of effort, but we were doing it, and we had a strong focus also on optimizing the campaigns for all those old feature phones, as you had such a limited space. And it was a challenge to create something that you could actually read on the banner, because when it's so tiny, then users would have to guess what it actually is. So it needed a lot of deep optimization on all different sizes, a lot of work on the design side to get this done. And then also for the media buyers to target the specific users, because you would have to set as a minimum campaigns for those old feature phones, those Nokias, then for the upcoming iPhones, and then also other devices that arrived along the way. But you can also obviously do much more, or many more different optimizations in this field. So target specific user groups, and so you can go unlimited deep.
But all of those things were happening manually, and so take us through how they're happening now.
Totally manually. I still remember like how I was spending 2 hours just uploading all those different banners for one campaign to the platform step by step. So,
but even on the content side, I had a conversation with someone recently that said, they were that works in the digital content industry, and said they were in rooms where someone with a keyboard was recording like polyphonic ringtones and whatever. That's that.
Yeah, totally. And also to maintain this, because sometimes you have to change a banner maybe for compliance reasons or whatever, and then there's a big process behind this to change all creatives and maintain the database, keep it up to date, etc. So there was a huge process behind it, and a lot of manual work on different departments. So many time-consuming tasks, and this was not 2010. So this process, I would say, remained for many years after. And during that time, there also arrived the time also of affiliate networks, where you could basically outsource to certain third-party sources the creative work, but also then basically just outsource the work, because there was a media buyer on another computer doing the same job. And so yeah, I don't know if that explains a bit like there's also the ad copies. So you also have the texts that because you sometimes you might also want to do search campaigns or others and creating the ad copies. So that's also quite significant amount of work,
so
especially.
We've got ad copy that's been affected. We've got design. We've got the sort of time constraints that have been cut. How do those things look now? So some of our viewers maybe less or more up to speed with how it actually works when we're setting up our marketing campaigns. And since we're talking about traffic compliance, explain to us how, in the first instance, traffic comes into existence.
Traffic ads on a higher level, how it works now. First of all, if we talk about ad copies, it's very easy to utilize AI for creating ad copies, as you could basically describe to the AI what's your target group and certain specifics of what you target, and then ask for a bullet point list, of the keywords that you want to use for your marketing. And then basically you get a beautiful predefined list that you will check, you will change a bit manually, but you can get definitely 90% plus of the ad copy work done. plus the translation. I mean, there have been also translation tools before AI, but also all those AI tools are pretty good in localization of those and do a pretty decent job as well. I would always have a native speaker to double check, what AI translated. But yeah, I would still say 90% of this job on the ad copy side can be now fully outsourced to AI, and it saves you a tremendous amount of time.
So, but this is a good point, and this is something we'll touch on a bit later in the conversation. But when we're saying we're outsourcing this to AI, or we're providing AI or whatever platform we're using to advertise with a set of information. So, for example, the pricing, the picture, the call to action, the this, and that tool or platform will determine itself where what is served and in which way.
Exactly. So, I think you're referring here mainly, for example, on Google, it's called RDAs, or responsive display ads. And basically, this is an AI from Google that is automatically creating graphics, texts, and banners in all kind of variations and sizes. So basically, you have to upload a set of creatives and ad copies. And also, if in certain countries you have regulations to put, for example, a price point on the banners, and then you have certain fields inside of Google Ads where you can define all the mandatory elements. And then basically Google will create hundreds, thousands, I don't know, different types of formats that they will tailor to the placement, because the placement can be a website, can be an app, can be YouTube, can be Gmail, it can be everywhere. So the AI will automatically decide what's the right format, and they will mix and match based on what you uploaded once to the best matching placement. And of course, the underlying AI is also measuring the success in terms of click-through rate. Click-through rate means the click rate from the banner to the actual desired landing page where you want to send the users, and also the conversion rate, like how many of the users arrived on your landing page actually converted into a paying subscriber, or yeah.
I think you're tying in perfectly to what Jamil is very well poised to tell us more about, and that's exactly that. So we've talked about, we can see clearly the benefits of optimization in the marketing side, but a part of marketing is obviously also analyzing and receiving data back from how our campaigns are doing. Jamil, what other tools exist, and in what other ways have you seen AI being effective or having really changed the game here from a marketing and traffic point of view?
Actually, there is one side that the AI can perfectly cover it right now, which is the real-time checking of the clicks coming to the landing pages. After the campaign is set, after everything is prepared, you are buying from open inventory, from big inventories, where again, the generator of this traffic can be, as Chris said, anywhere in any publisher. So the AI here can determine if the clicks are coming to the landing page have pattern of genuine clicks, or they are coming from both. So we can save the cost of these bad placements and blacklist them in real time. This is one side of the game to make sure that all the clicks are generated by human. The second thing is when you, as an advertiser, you have approved certain campaign with your telco, and you are inside in a country or a territory where you have to adapt to certain regulations. So if you own the media buying, then it's fine. You can control it more when you own the media buying. But when you want to outsource to someone else, to affiliate marketing, then here is the problem comes in. So you have to expect that not all the outsourced work will work as per the desire. So people can not be very aligned with the policies. We are not sure that our partners.
Are we saying there's an inherent risk in outsourcing?
Yes, there is a
Or
risk.
are there ways to protect against that?
Yes, there is a risk in outsourcing, definitely, and also this complaint can come up to and to destroy the whole business if something. Let's say we get some special flow because we are eligible for this flow to run on certain traffic platform, but then the complaint coming from the monitoring tools proves that the campaign is running on different platforms, not the one that was giving the permission to run on. Here, the AI is able to, in real time, if we get the needed access from the client or from the stakeholders, we can block it in real time, and
Okay.
then we are able to scale without risking the compliance part.
You bring me to a very important point there, because you're referring to monitoring. We know in the DCB content ad space that in many markets we work with monitoring compliance partners that either help us with anti-fraud solutions to block things up front, but also monitoring what's happening in the market and either flag that to whoever needs to know it, be it the provider themselves, a regulator, operator, whatever. We were going to have Gavin Dent of Impella, co-founder of Impella, with us on today's webinar. Gavin couldn't make it at last minute. I have to take 100% full responsibility for that due to a lack of communication from my side towards Gavin. There was a misunderstanding around timing, and Gavin couldn't make it last minute. So our apologies, my apologies personally, MEF's apologies to Gavin, and that's also why we would have loved to have him, just to also give us that compliance point of view, and that part of the bring that part of the conversation in. But I'm sure that they'll be joining us in our other conversations going forward. So one of the questions, one of the things Gavin and I had actually discussed in preparation to this is there's obviously a situation where our regulator, so there's different ways that our market can be regulated. It can either be a government or a self-regulatory body like an NCC in Nigeria or a WASPA in South Africa saying, this is the code of conduct, thou shalt play by these rules. But it could also be a set of business rules that your mobile network operator has tied you to, saying this needs to be where your pricing information is shown, this needs to be this, that, or the other. Or we have markets where there's a master gateway, perhaps, sitting underpinning that market. And the master gateway might have certain rules, and they might have a certain set of rules that differ among merchants. How in our platforms, so there's also, in other words, a scenario, and it's not just a hypothetical scenario, it happens in real life as well, where these various sets of requirements exist at the same time in one market. And how do we then, as marketers, how does AI know? Is it, Christopher, you referred to when we're setting up our RDA campaigns, we could say this and this and this is mandatory. Is that enough? Does that ensure that we're then confident we're playing by all these various sets of rules?
Yeah, unfortunately not. We had big issues in certain markets on this matter. South Africa is a good example because on certain mobile operators, it's enforced to have the price point on every banner. And whenever we use the RDAs, the responsive display ads, we set, for example, the price point in one field as a mandatory element. But there are certain quite rare combinations that the AI puts together where they just don't put the pricing. And this resulted in the compliance companies who are monitoring the market sending tickets to the partners, and it took a few months, I would say.
Well, I mean, I suppose as they should, because if on paper it's a violation, then
they are correct in this,
yes.
you know. And then we had so many discussions back and forth. Yeah, but it's Google, you know. We could prove it's there, but on certain combinations it's just not happening, and that's, let's say, a flaw of the AI. That basically it's the same what also Jamil mentioned. Whenever you outsource something, and it's kind of outsourcing because we're outsourcing our work. In the past, when we were creating all the banners, it's an easy task because we tell the designer the price point needs to be always in the bottom right corner, right? So, and it's easy to check. But when you outsource this to the AI and you kind of rely that this is happening, but then after a while you find out, no, the AI is not actually always doing what it's supposed to do, then this is creating problems, you know. And it took a few months, I think, to create a common understanding of this problem, so that now WASPA and the compliance companies found a way, you know, on dealing with this, you know, and not enforcing this in because also, I mean, it's an issue, but it's not, let's say, a super severe issue from my perspective that is creating direct user harm if a price point in 2% of all the banner displays will be missing, you know. So I think it's definitely an issue to be taken care of, but maybe there are other more important things that should be.
Sure, and I'm sure if we had 10 speakers on this panel, 5 of them would say it is an issue, and 5 of them would say it's not an issue. So that's certainly you know, a point that's up for debate. But I think the fact is that, or the reality is that there are markets that we're facing these questions around. Is it enough for me as a merchant or as a marketeer to say, oh, well, I had the intention of the price being on the banner or of whatever obligatory element being present, but, you know, AI didn't show it and it was only, you know, so that's definitely an interesting use case that we'll see in more and more markets. And I think it's happened in the past, and it might happen on this again, where other markets globally will look to how WASPA have dealt with this to try and get an idea of how to move forward with it. And I know in the UK that they're also busy with good work with the AIM, the local industry association there, in terms of coming up with best practices to address some of these things that are, in a way, also the result of our AI-driven sort of marketing campaigns. Now, over and above the use of AI in our marketing, so our pushing of marketing to our potential consumers and subscribers, there's obviously also a role for AI in its own sort of monitoring of, are what we're marketing and how we're marketing it compliant with that platform's own policies. So you referred to RDAs, obviously. We know if, for example, I am setting up a campaign on Google, or I've got an account on Google, that I'm also bound. So I'm first, in terms of consumer facing, I'm bound by M&O business rules, regulation, blah, blah, blah. But towards this side, towards my own campaigns, I'm also bound by, for example, Google's own policy and ads policy. And somewhere behind that is also AI sitting and checking what we're doing. I'm assuming that it's not human beings for each and every ad in the world, and flagging certain things that are happening. I returned from telecoms world in Middle East, from before that regulatory meetings in Southern Africa. And speaking to members, we're hearing and we're understanding more and more that we're seeing an increase in account suspensions due to, you know, various reasons, and that's a different conversation in itself. So we needn't go, you know, too much in the details, because as MEF, we'll be likely touching on that point specifically in one of our other forums soon. But can you tell us a bit more, Chris, about that side of that role of AI?
Yeah, for sure. And so I would stay with the Google example because this is the main source of traffic for our industry and also the main source I'm in our companies dealing with professionally. So on Google has always been using bots, which are constantly checking websites. And so you would see on every website on the internet, you see some bots accessing it and they are testing something. You never know what exactly, but there have always been rules, in terms of compliance, what you need to put on your website, and there have always been best practices in terms of what to do. And what we can clearly see this year, that something changed on Google's side. So there's an quite significant increase in account suspensions. And this is happening globally and also not only in the MVAS DCB industry, it's also happening in other fields where many companies are just losing their Google accounts on account suspensions. And this is directly related. We don't know for sure, but for an upgrade on the Google bots that are using probably the Gemini or whatever underlying AI from Google to analyze many more data points than before.
But it's interesting you mentioned like there's obviously AI involved there. So in preparing for this, I went and I read Google's ad policy, not the whole thing obviously, but the part that was relevant. And I didn't think at my ripe old age I'd learn a new English word, but I did. It's egregious. And it means very much so. It means a lot.
Yeah.
And Google refers to its egregious violations. And among those is this circumventing systems reason for account suspensions. But what I found interesting is that it says egregious violations often reflect that the advertiser's overall business does not adhere to our ad policies. Mm-hmm. And a violation that's classified as such will be immediately, suspended with no prior notification or whatever, as you well know.
Yeah.
And that to me was interesting because I think there's a philosophical question there that's certainly also not the one for this platform, but to state that a breach of this type indicates that your overall business is not compliant. Whilst it could well be that I've done some or other thing, just in a bona fide way or overlooked something, or in many cases, and this really is the case with at least our MEF members and the members and even non-members in the greater industry that I've been speaking to, is that they either simply do not know why this is being flagged, or they're really actually trying to address it, but without not much success. So I think that brings us to another point. There's clearly many players involved here. Jamil, you referred to your monitoring partners, your technical partners. We've referred all of us to the regulators, to the mobile network operators. How, Jamil, how do all these people come together, and how do we go forward in terms of where's our best case scenario? What does that look like?
Yeah, in the ideal life, that everyone is like expecting to have the campaign up and running as long as possible in order to optimize, to get better CPA price and better ROI, and to learn more about what audiences are and building the audiences for the service, etc., etc. But it's not happening all the time, especially when you invest in some market and then some issue happen because of uncompliant complaint, and then the whole market shut down, like now in Saudi Arabia, as we all know, and we are all trying to understand when this will be up again. Why? Because there is no 100% guarantee that every single click hitting to the checkout page where the mobile operator reliability is exposed. So why? Because there is no single factor that you can go 1, 2, 3 and you are done. A lot of stakeholders in this process, Until now, unfortunately, no one could unify one specific process in order to keep the traffic compliant. Here is the AI. Like any digital transformation operation, when you come to a problem happening, then the AI implementation companies come and see how they can help to make to solve all these problems. And now, as the advancements we see in Google APIs and other traffic sources APIs, a lot of things can be done in real time. And if somehow the regulator and then the operator have the needed vision or have the expertise to define this rule, then technically this can be implemented easily. But someone who has the power has to implement it and to tell everyone, like, guys, this is the process. If you want to get this special flow, if you want to run in one checkout page all the operators, so you can target bigger audiences, so you can optimize more, so you can earn on the long run more, then you have to go through giving the access to this monitoring tool that will be in real time simulating for each single click the origin ad format it was coming from, and then compile it with whatever compliance model set on the AI level, and then for each single click we see the confidence rate, and then we either pass the request or not. Ideally,
Okay.
this would be possible, especially now after all these changes on the ad platforms side, and also on the traffic monitoring company side as well.
Yeah, again, a pity we couldn't have to have Gavin here as well to give his opinion on that. But heard you loud and clear, Jamil. Chris, same goes for you. Same question.
Because
yeah,
now
sorry,
if we want to adapt this to a content provider who has ownership on the ad accounts, and he knows already what are the regulations. So this model can be easily implemented, at least for the internal media buying practices. Whenever
and I
we
suppose there's something to be said about visibility there as well. So
yes, that's true.
To be able to be granted visibility to go see what's happening there in real time. I know, take the Dutch market, for example, that's a prerequisite. It's part of the due diligence checks, is that
Definitely, I see it coming. I see it
your
coming.
marketing campaigns to the local regulator.
Yes, definitely. I see it coming because the operators have awareness now that this can be done. For whatever reason was denying of giving the visibility API over the campaign. I mean, before they were asking only to send sample of the campaigns that of the creatives that will be implemented on the campaigns. But it's very hard to commit to one single ad creative, and this also was limiting the media buyer to be creative and delivering dynamic campaign, dynamic artwork for the campaign to get better ROI. But now implementing the correct AI and this chain can keep the compliance and also at the same time give the media buyer flexibility to be creative and designing marketing funnels.
Okay. Chris, I was just thinking now, this is all good and well for markets where we're using, for example, Google and this type of digital advertising. But is there in this day and age still markets where we're not doing that? Where we're using other channels, or where we're selling content to consumers with smartphones, the stupid phones, whatever. Feature phones, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I think most of the markets worldwide are dominated by Google as the primarily traffic source. I see Asia as the only continent where it's different a bit, where other traffic sources are more dominant than Google. The reasons are very different ones here. But for us, for example, the whole APAC region is not very good environment for Google Ads, because we see we are competing with other traffic sources that have much cheaper traffic, and it's still a pretty unregulated environment. And for companies who are operating in a clean and sustainable way, from my perspective, we need regulations. So and then must be regulations on the telco side. There must be some kind of monitoring in the markets, because if without regulations, the people buy whatever traffic, and despite you most likely get better quality from Google compared to other traffic sources, it's then still difficult to compete with those other companies who are in and buying the cheap traffic to acquire.
But this is exactly why I love this UK example. And sorry to sound like a broken record about it, but I'm really a fan of what is happening. You're saying, for example, regulations are important, but we don't necessarily need a regulator to regulate us. We can also self-regulate. We can also collaborate. And that's exactly what AIM and its members in the UK are doing. They're saying, we're going to get together and we're voluntarily going to draft these best practices for how we're doing our digital advertising. Yeah. And of course, a very valid question was raised, how is that going to be enforced? But there's also sort of pack mentality there, where as soon as you have some sort of critical mass of everyone partaking in this, then it becomes easy to hold the ones that are not playing by the rules accountable, or easier, I'd say.
I agree. And I mean, the Netherlands is also a market with a self-regulatory initiative, but it's also difficult, if some players inside this conglomerate are not playing along, as there must be just one. And I think in Netherlands, it's the mobile operators who are, not fully aligned with everything there. And then this can also break. As it's becoming over-regulated, and then not a great market environment for all the players anymore. So there's a fine line. I just want to say.
If that's how you feel about it, I'm going to invite you to the Global Carrier Billing Summit in Amsterdam in September, because they'll be there.
Okay.
So let me grossly take a moment to plug it as well. We have one panel discussion that we're setting up at that event, 17-18 September in Amsterdam, that is specifically focused on paid for mobile services regulators and associations globally. And the panel will consist entirely of representatives from these various regulators and associations. And we hope to facilitate a conversation for them around what are the challenges or things that they've addressed in their markets. What are the pros and cons of self-regulation, government regulation? It might well be, like we referred to earlier, that something that WASPA addressed, 3 years ago is something that Saudi Arabia is struggling with now. And how can they as regulatory bodies learn from each other in that regard? I see we're at around about the 40-minute mark now, so I'm going to ask if there have been any questions. I actually see a little bubble in the Q&A.
I just wanted to mention one point that on the account suspension topic, which I consider quite important, because that's also a downside of the AI, and I see it in all online marketing industries being a big issue, not only with Google, also with other platforms, like also on social media platforms, where the AI is creating false positives. So, and we also see that on our campaigns, that sometimes we get an account suspension. We appeal. You always have to appeal then to Google to prove that this suspension was wrong. And sometimes it takes 1 hour, and then the campaign is back because they actually identified that this was a false positive. But
I believe that the longer it's down, the more your CPAs and your conversion rates are.
Yeah, exactly. The longer a campaign is paused or suspended, it's definitely harming the campaigns on the performance side for sure. But those false positives seem to be a big problem in all industries right now, because the AIs might still be stupid in certain ways, or to overweight certain things amongst each other.
Yeah.
And we don't know the underlying algorithms. So they're definitely, as we said, with the small thing with the pricing thing where the AI is missing out.
That's exactly why conversation remains so important. Not only conversation.
Exactly. So AI is far away from perfect. We're still early, and I mean, it's for me every day. I'm amazed when I'm working with AI, like the capabilities. I'm still positively amazed and sometimes shocked. You know how good it actually
like
is.
me with my birthday cake picture.
Given that ChatGPT was the first contact with the real AI, and it's not too long ago, huh? One and a half year or so. Yeah, but it means, you know, it's still far away from perfect. And if companies rely too much on purely AI without the human touch, then we probably run into issues. Maybe in 5 years from now, the AI might be much smarter than us and not have those problems anymore. But right now, we still see problems also related to AI. And I think that's an important point that we should also mention.
If you check, like now still the traffic giants are in the process of laying off non-important jobs or manual jobs with the hope that the AI will replace them. But definitely the false positive is there, and it needs more time to be mature as AI. And sometimes the same conditions on the same ad account, one campaign is disapproved, the other is not. Sometimes on the same MCC, one account is good, the other is not. So how the footprint is identified is something is not always clear.
Maybe this actually already touches on some of the questions. Let's move to a couple of the viewer questions. Firstly, one for you, Jamil. This is from Mawish. She says, I've heard some interesting ideas about using AI to build a self-managed traffic farming tool. Would you like to shed some light on this? Is that something you think you can speak to?
Yes, definitely. Like
farming, I'm assuming not like Farmville.
No, yes, this is a common practice, and everyone knows like 5 to 10% of Google traffic is coming from bots, and people are trying to sell this EPC to advertisers who are not able to detect because the traffic is coming to you through one channel as mixed traffic. So now having tools or having good technical knowledge, you can identify and block these ad placements. And you can now, speaking about our case, we have a big blacklist of ad placements and websites that they are very well known for traffic farming tool.
So it's happening. It's on. That's what you're saying. Chris, I think this one for you. Ricardo Valaro says, is Google making us move to a product marketing environment? The generic download is not good for Google and our markets anymore. So I suppose, you know, we need to start marketing our products the same way. First thing comes to mind, Volvo markets their cars or Washburn market their guitars, which is not, you know, just buy any old guitar. It's buy this specific model because it has these and these functions.
Yeah, I think I know what Ricardo is referring to, and it's a difficult topic because generic marketing, in case some people here don't know about this, means that you would use a quite generic banner which would say download your content now, for example. And then people would click on it and arrive at the landing page. The thing is that also the Google inventory, and especially other non-Google inventories, are quite bad websites. So, and where it's also questionable why users are actually on those websites. And those websites are, I don't know, let's say they have certain game downloads or whatever. And then they are trying to monetize their website with placements, and Google is selling those placements. And so those banners, pretty generic ones, have a very high click-through rate because maybe those websites are placing the banner in a position on the website where the users would think they're actually downloading a game, or but they would just arrive. So it's partly misleading. But from my perspective, it's still a valid promotion method in case the users arrive at a landing page that actually displays what the content is. So it's kind of a slightly misleading tool to have a higher click rate on the banners, which is a common practice in a lot of industries, which we know it's not the perfect world, but it is like it is. I like sometimes to compare it also. If you go with your small kid to a supermarket, they would place the Paw Patrol figures on eye level of the kids, right? So it's marketing is not always fair. This is one justification, I would say, for this practice. As long as you're not.
I'm already seeing the PR storm that's going to hit me next week when we're quoted as saying marketing is not always fair. But no, I understand fully what you mean, and I know that
sorry, I'm honest person, so I'm
all of marketing is the act of taking behavioral psychology and the things that make us as humans tick, why we think
exactly,
and why we make certain decisions to make those decisions.
Yes, but getting back to Ricardo's question, so I think yes, the industry has to move. The MVAS industry has to provide better content products that are actually valuable, which is part of the name of our industry, right? Value-added services, which is often not the case. So there's definitely work to be done, and step by step, moving away from such marketing approaches, that's definitely one of the needed things. And also, the more clear the whole funnel from banner to landing page to payment is, the better the user quality is, the more the companies will earn also, if the users also get what they expect to get. So
yes.
It's I do want to echo, sorry, Jamil, just echo quickly what Christopher said there is, I think there also is very good, and I don't want to just use the word content, but services and products. And I see this across MEF members. Merchants have very good products, but at the end of the day, when they're marketing those, they're also competing with merchants that are marketing products of a lesser value. So it's really at the end of the day about what you're showing the consumer when they're coming to your landing page and when they're interacting with your product. And once they've signed up to your product, that's when you're showing the value. And again, that's something that we've worked on in one of our working groups at MEF, which is the customer experience. So to show DCB and this environment is not only about getting the consumer through the door, it's what are we offering them after they're through the door, and how are we treating them, and what quality of product are we delivering to them. I have another question for you, Jamil, if you will. From one of our viewers, Muhammad says, how can AI be leveraged to predict and prevent traffic violations before they occur? And what are the ethical considerations in implementing such predictive measures? So I think this is even a step before the real-time stuff that you were referring to. This is like even before.
Before the real-time, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what's
nothing
before.
To be possible, yeah. But if we can make it near to real-time, then it's like, again, any implementation of the AI into a working process, into a work process. We identify what are the metrics, how can the automation step in which step, and then define together the violation metrics, give it to the AI, and put it aside, and then every single hit coming to your checkout page can cross-check with what is defined as a good example, and then the confidence rate will tell you either to sending warning that you have violation occurring, or even instruct the AI to stop the activity from the beginning. So it's about the implementation.
It's all about that visibility and all about that, informing the product and the tool what it needs to be looking at.
Definitely, and we can always have a up and running pipelines with the traffic data pipelines with the traffic sources, to which we can connect the AI for overlooking the status of all the campaign, not only one campaign that is discovered by the manual checking of the crawling or something. We can overlook everything almost to near real time if we have the access on the data pipeline. Then this task can be implemented. Yes, it's realistic. Yeah.
I think we have time for one last question. Chris, I am going to give this one for you. And I think if you answer it correctly, then we can likely all retire by close of business today. And the question from Awish is there any way to make Google ads cheaper or more affordable than what they currently are in any market? Add to that.
Who asked that? Ricardo again?
No, Mawish.
Mawish, to make Google cheaper. I mean, difficult for me to answer this question. So we would have to ask Google if they can make the cost cheaper. But in the end, also, I believe it's also an AI or algorithmic-based bidding mechanism that is based on supply and demand. So this is why it's difficult. And if you see right now here in Germany, if you want to bid on some keywords related to football, because the European Cup, you pay a few euros per click. So it's supply and demand where you want to be ranked. So this is why, and also one good example maybe from the MVAS industry is also what Jamil tackled earlier is that Saudi Arabia stopped last year in December because of some fraud in the market, and then one mobile operator stopped all acquisition in the market. And we saw that a lot of advertisers from the region, because they couldn't invest them in Saudi Arabia anymore, they were moving to UAE. We saw the market in UAE got so much more competitive, and the CPAs on Google increased in December, January, plus 20-30% across the board, because it got more competitive, more people were entering the market, increasing their budgets. So the price got higher for everyone. And this is we see markets that are we are live in certain markets that are not competitive on Google, where we are more or less the only one investing on this specific type of traffic, like mobile operator targeted traffic, and then the cost in Google are ridiculously cheap. So it's supply and demand, but unfortunately I cannot give a precise answer on how we can make Google
or an economics lecture on
influence. But there's always on constant A/B testing of services to have the constantly updating banners, creatives, to always find the best combinations of landing pages and banners. And that's what I see. A lot of companies in this business are quite lazy on running the same like forever. And I remember me in the past 5 years ago, always A/B/C testing, landing pages, combinations. But this got a bit, I see at least a lot of companies are not doing that extensively anymore to really analyze all data points here. And this is something where AI might be helping us. Yeah.
Let me ask you something, because this is something I've seen in the markets is I also find many merchants or marketeers then rather, wherever I travel, I always like to get a local SIM card and I like to do some testing, seeing what's out there in the market. And I never see an ad for something where I think, what a creative ad for this digital content service. It always looks the same as everyone else's other ads look. And so maybe that's also ties to what Ricardo, referred to is that I think as an industry, we also need to move away from this thinking. And we're seeing it when we're speaking to our members that are offering mobile money as a payment method alongside or in addition to DCB. Because there I'm using the same money that I'm paying for my kids' school fees to pay for this digital content, and not something as intangible perhaps as adding it to my mobile phone bill. The barrier to conversion mentally, again, that behavioral psychology thing, is much higher. So there, we as marketers are already sort of forced to turn away from just getting you to click to going, you need to mentally be invested in this purchase before you even get to the checkout, else you're just going to abandon it. I'm very happy you mentioned the football in Germany. This is the perfect note for us to finish on. People are going to think I'm wearing orange, so this was pre-recorded. On Wednesday, it wasn't. Today is Thursday, the 11th of July. I'm wearing orange because I am commiserating with the Dutch after last night's occurrence. But I suppose I'm not allowed to use this platform to discuss politics. So I really want to thank you both, Christopher and Jamil, for joining us today for this conversation. It was really insightful, and I really sincerely hope that everyone that joined in liked the discussion as well. If there are topics that are close to your heart that you feel as a community, as this part of the industry, we should be addressing, we should be exploring, we should be inviting experts to talk about, please get in touch with us, let us know. And we thank you all very much for joining us today. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jamil.
Thanks, Anzelle.
Thank you.
Bye.